Recording now. Awesome. Yeah, welcome to our second meeting. Today we're gonna do demos, and then we have a learning module, and then we're gonna go into issues for the next week. So let's start with demos. I'll preface this by saying try to keep your demo 5 minutes or less. Sometimes it's easy when you're in the spotlight to accidentally talk for too long. I do that a lot. But yeah, essentially what you'll want to do is one person will showcase the app, just talk us through the feature that you added, and then I would encourage probably the other person to do screen sharing and just kind of walk us through your code very briefly, and then we can do some quick Q&A as well. And then this will be good to prepare you for job interviews is kind of the goal here. So this is the best place to make a mistake. So don't be afraid to do so. Which team would like to go first?
Maybe we can go first because we did the first issue, second issue. Nika, sounds good.
Cool.
Yep.
You guys got it.
Okay. I can share my screen first. Sorry, I have two monitors. Let's see. Am I sharing the right one? This is the production one. Okay, so for this feature, we were tasked to make sure that we rendered the name of each shopping list that a user is subscribed to. So as you can see in this home tab, the first list, which is our dummy data for our user's first list, is rendered here. So what we did pretty much, let me show you the code. So in the home page, we got this data from the app JSX, which is right here, line 2049. This data, this list sort of date shows the data that we got from here, line 36, and line 41, which shows the data of the list, the user list. And so we would map through this data that we got from the last page. And for each item, we also have an index. We want to map through all of it and render all the lists that users should subscribe to, which is right here. We return the single list, and it has all these props. And now Nika can maybe talk about the name of each item for the list.
Sure. So I will share my screen. So I prepared a little presentation. I'm not sure if it was over the top or no. But so basically I was taking care of the list page. So once we navigate to the list, here we can see all of the items in the list being displayed. And this is essential because our user wants to know what they have in their list. And for the code, so you can see that I have the unordered list, and within the unordered list, I'm iterating over the data, and I am passing into the list item the name that is being ultimately displayed. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly talk about I had struggles with figuring out the structure of my data, and I was originally iterating over the array, so that was a mistake. And I have also pointed out to myself that I kept on noticing my mistakes days and days after I have thought, okay, this is good code, this is good. And then, I'll walk away, come back, and there's a mistake, and it's so obvious, I don't know how to fight that. I figured I need to take more breaks. Yeah, and that's it. So you can see that we have achieved this list. That's it.
Yeah, awesome job. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right. Yeah, great job. hopefully it felt good. Sometimes it's a little awkward when you're first starting to get to know people. So that's why I believe Jennifer mentioned these earlier issues are a little more light, so we can get used to each other. But awesome. Let's have the other group go.
Awesome. I will share my screen here, and I'll go over the feature, and Gabrielle will go over the code changes. Okay, so the task that was assigned to us was, as a user, I want to be able to navigate to all the pages in the application by clicking links in the nav bar. So we have the nav bar here currently, and you click home, you navigate to the home page, you click list, you navigate to the list page, and you click manage list, and you are directed to the manage list page. And now I will share the VS Code window.
I can share the code too. I was able to pull it up.
Oh, you can? Okay,
Yep.
great.
Okay. So this is the code that we wrote. Most of it was already set up for us for the nav bar. So basically we imported navlink from React Router up here, and then the navigation was pretty much set up. All we had to do was replace the A tag with navlink, and then we added the to, which and then we grabbed the URLs from app.jsx. The paths were already laid out in here, so we grabbed those three and then listed those in the nav links, and then that's what appends the list and the manage list to the URL once you click on it. So those are pretty much all the changes that we had to make.
Awesome. Any questions or comments from anyone? Collabbies or mentors? Yeah, great job. I think my only suggestion for the second group would be when you're demoing, demo with the live app if you can, not with localhost. And then the one other thing that I noticed, I think I missed this was my bad, but in layout.jsx, there's still comments that are like, to do these links don't work. I should have caught that in the review. So if someone touches that next week, let's just roll it in with the change for the issue. Should be pretty quick. But two tiny things. Yeah, great job though. Cool. Excellent. Let's move on. I think, what was next? Was that you, Hassan?
Yeah, I can go with the learning module if that's cool.
Cool. Yeah,
Let's go ahead and share my screen. Code review, share, and then just give me a thumbs up when you can see this. Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Hey, folks. Most of you already know me. If you don't, my name is Hassan. I'm one of the mentors. Today, we're going to be doing a learning module on code reviews, and what a great time to do it. So what are we going to do today? Let's get started with the agenda. So first up on the list, what is a code review? Second up, the code review cycle. Third up, what makes a code review a great code review? And then we're going to cover how can I help others review my code, and then how can I review others' codes, and then lastly, exploring code in GitHub. So what is a code review? A code review is really conversation about the set of changes that you're making to the code base. It's one of the best places you can share your knowledge and learn from others. At the end of the day, it's just another space, just like Slack, for you to collaborate on your code and the work that you're doing. So you get to share your work and ask questions, which is really cool. And then it helps you improve as a developer, and it helps your team also decentralize knowledge, share responsibilities, and improve the code base. You wouldn't believe the number of times you have to go to the code to learn why we did something rather than trying to find a conversation in Slack, because codes usually have really great reviews, really have really great context around why a decision was made and why we decided to go in a certain direction. And it's always a good idea to go back to those merge requests or those pull requests to find out why did we do what we did. So what does a code review cycle look like? So essentially you checked out your feature branch, you did some work, you opened up a pull request, and is ready for your team to review it. So it goes through a review feedback cycle. And it kind of keeps going until it finally gets merged in. So you receive feedback, you action on it, you receive feedback, you action on it. Usually, depending on how large the change is, you as someone who is putting up the pull request will kind of decide how many people will want to QA that code. If it's something that kind of touches the architecture of your code, you want to make sure your whole team is on board, because again, it's really great context of like the direction we're heading into a team. But if it's like a variable change or like a copy change, one or two, even one person is, all you need to get that approval. So you really get to decide what that review cycle looks like. The most important thing is to action on feedback, as soon as you can. Your team is going to be busy. If they have time and they leave you feedback, try to action it as soon as possible. Ping them when you've made the change, and kind of it's the most important thing is just keep your team aware of what's happening with that pull request. You don't want to leave anything fall through the cracks. And then once you got that approval, merge it in. It's the most exciting thing to get things across the finish line. That's why we do this, is to make that impact when that code is finally merged in, it's finally in production. So just merge it in when you get the opportunity. Cool. So what makes a code review a great code review? The most important thing is you want to make sure that the feedback that you're providing is going to be impactful and something that they can action on. So there's some really cool tools that already exist that you can leverage to make sure the formatting is correct, to make sure that linting is correct. Usually when you join a team, they already have a set of rules to format the code and all that, so you don't have to worry about styling at all. What you should kind of focus on is the approach they took. If it's something, say you had a previous conversation with the team and you're like, hey, we're going to do it this way. And maybe the approach isn't the same way your team decided on, you can comment on that. Yeah, so don't worry too much about styling. We have a previous file that kind of automatically activates, formats your code. The other thing you want to do is you want to test the feature not only in production, but you also want to pull the code down and do it locally as well, just to make sure that you verify that the code works. So usually on my team, we kind of have a QA process where we kind of test the code in production, but you also want to pull down the code, make sure it works. The code also looks good. And this will prevent you from doing the classic looks good to me. A lot of times, sometimes the feedback that you get is like, looks good to me, but if it's something that's done really well, don't be afraid to praise it. Be like, hey, I really like how you took this approach. I really like how you did, whatever they did. It's always good to know that your code was looked at in a really good manner. And then the other thing is to default to approval. And default to approval kind of means have positive intent. If they're heading in the right direction, be like, hey, this looks really good to me. One or two things that may need to change, maybe the variable name isn't the best one. Maybe it's not the most understandable one, or maybe you're using camel case when you should be using snake case or anything like that. Like maybe that doesn't look great, but the way they've implemented something looks great. So default to approval. Be kind and empathetic. That's kind of the biggest thing when you're a developer. Be nice to other in the sense that you want to elevate your team, right? Like if you give too much feedback, it's kind of negative, maybe not something they can action on. It doesn't feel really good. So be empathetic. People have things going on. Maybe they didn't have time to action on everything. But just empathy is a huge thing when it comes to just a team environment. You can help others understand your code. We're going to talk about that in the self-review in the next section. Trying to answer all the questions. Usually when there's discussions that get opened up, again, it's a really great place for you to collaborate. So have those conversations in those threads in GitLab or GitHub, and then take your time. There you go. Run the code. We kind of touched on this already, but again, gives you confidence that the work that you did looks good, helps you find things that you probably wouldn't have caught just by skimming the code. Again, you want to QA the code and go through a code review. Resist the temptation to say, looks good to me. You always want to provide actual feedback, whether it's good or negative. PRs can include instructions on how to run the code. What I always say is you want to do your best for your code to get across the finish line. So what can you do to help the other person? Provide really good instructions for how you run the code. If you have to, create like a video running them through your code and the QA, because that's going to help them know exactly how to QA it. Again, at the end of the day, it's the impact that you want to make, and the impact that you want to make is like getting your code across. And so just help the other person, help the other team out as much as you can to help you able to do that. That's why we talk about like when you have pull requests and merge requests, make sure they're short, because short merge requests are easy to review and they'll make it across the finish line a lot sooner. That's one of the reasons you want to keep them short. And then if you're not sure how, just ask questions. Great learning opportunity. Again, GitHub is just another platform for you to collaborate as a team. How can you help? How can I help others review my code? Add a meaningful description. You know, this code review changes this, or this code review introduces this, or refactors this. You want to kind of let the other team know why you're creating this and what the impact of this is, or by having this work merged in, we should now be able to do this. So whatever the code does, you just want to add a meaningful description. Write meaningful commit messages. We kind of talked about all that already, but you want to be able to, if someone is skimming through the history of the code base, you want to be able to know, hey, like in this commit message, this happened. This got removed, this got refactored, we added test. Whatever you did in that commit message, just make it really clear. Self-review your code. I love that my team really leans into that. So we have a concept of self-review. What happens with the self-review is once you've opened up the PR, go through it like another developer for the first time. So you want to, and then if something doesn't make sense, just comment on it yourself. So for example, I remember one of the teams doing object.map or object.value instead of map. And so another team may be like, interesting, you didn't use the map. So like if you think another team would have that question, just self-review it. Be like, oh, we decided to go in that direction because this was a better approach. And so it kind of answers those questions before they even come up. So I absolutely love self-review. It's a really great way to kind of advocate for the approach that you took. So again, explain why you did what you did, and then ask questions. And then use screen capturing tools. They help a lot. Again, Loom is a big one for my team because we love defaulting to having a video when something doesn't make sense. We help on huddles. We help on Loom. Anything, again, to help your code move across the finish line. Awesome. I think Danielle kind of already did this when we were reviewing GitHub, so I'm not going to go into this too much, but just a reminder that when you're reviewing the code, again, this can be a little bit scary because when you see 799 lines being added, it kind of, you're like, oh no, I don't know how to approach this. So again, to make it really easy for the person reviewing your code, make them as small as possible. It always helps. And then you can see the number of files that have changed right over here. And then on the bottom left side, you can see the number of commits and then just the commit messages on the slide here. The next thing to note is this really cool viewed feature. So if there's multiple files that have changed, if you've reviewed a file, you can just click as viewed. So you don't have to go through a huge list of files as you're scrolling up and down. So it just kind of gets those files out of the way so you know what you have reviewed and what you still have to review. And then I guess the last section here is share your thoughts. So I'm going to pass the floor back to everyone on the Zoom call here. And then just maybe popcorn it over, or if you have something to say, definitely just like raise your hands or say it out loud. What has your experience been in the past with the code reviews? Maybe I'll lean on the mentors. I'll pick on Jennifer and Danielle. Jennifer, what about you?
Okay. I go first. I think one of the things I experienced early on, and then also now as I'm like mentoring more junior members on my team, in the beginning, sometimes it's hard for you to separate yourself from your code. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes it's really hard in your first code reviews to feel like when someone gives you feedback, it reflects negatively on you. Like, oh, why did I make these mistakes? My code sucks. Am I a bad developer? Like, why? And then sometimes we can end up having conflict with team members because we're feeling some ill intention that wasn't there. So what I try to encourage people who are new to code reviews is that there are some people whose style, and it might be like me, I leave a lot of comments in code reviews, maybe small suggestions, small nits, or things that you can punt or do later. But my intention is always from a place of learning and always from a place of improving. And I'm not saying you're a bad developer. I'm saying that even my code can be improved from someone else's eyes. So always remember that your code is not you, even though it's all your hard work. So that's just one thing I like to emphasize whenever we go over this code reviews and stuff like that.
That's such a good comment. Honestly, it's there's almost like a barrier you cross between like you're hesitant to throw up a merge request or a pull request because you're worried about the feedback that you're going to get. And then eventually,
Exactly.
as you like become a more confident developer, you almost love putting those up, even in draft status. That's why the draft status is so important. You want to share your work early and get that feedback early. And then eventually it'll come to the point where you almost expect really great feedback from your team so you can learn and grow as a developer, because it's so true that a lot of the learning actually happens when you do code reviews. I remember specifically I had a senior developer be like, Asan, why did you put a use effect there? Like, I see what you're trying to do, but have you tried like not having it there and removing it? The code still worked. And I was like, I don't know why I had a use effect, but again, it's a really great opportunity for you to go through your code again and be like, oh, like maybe I was using a hook in an incorrect way, right? So don't worry about putting up your code for reviews even early, because again, it's one of the best ways you can learn as a developer. Danielle.
Yeah, I think to kind of add on to what Jennifer said, I know like when I first started, I was always kind of like, these people know so much more than me, and how can I review their code because, you know, I can't add anything to it. And what I started doing was just asking questions. Sometimes they were silly, sometimes they were great because it got the person to be like, huh, I really can't explain why I did it this way, so maybe I should do it a different way. And I also think that's a great cheat code for if you're reviewing code that's like in a language or a stack that you're unfamiliar with as well. So that goes beyond being early career, like just jump in, ask questions. And I think it's good for you because, you know, if it's like a silly question, you learn something. And then if it's not a silly question, that person will kind of second think. But yeah, another thing that my team does that I really like, and they just did it on their own. I can't take credit for this, but a lot of times if they're doing like much larger, like architectural type of changes, they will actually informally be like, hey, here's how I'm thinking of solving this before they even write a line of code. And starting that conversation before you even write code can be really helpful because people are a little more willing to be open to feedback and change their minds because they're not invested in, you know, oh, I spent a whole week writing this code. This better get approved and merged. So definitely, in some cases, you don't have to wait for the review to get feedback. And I've seen people in Collab Lab do that as well. So definitely don't be afraid to do that. I think that's about all I had. So
Yeah, that's a great call out. I'm going to give the floor over to our collabs here. How did you feel when you were doing code reviews this week?
I can go. It was my first time doing it, so I was also just getting used to handling the like I merged the pull request after seeing what was done, and certainly I'm going to take time to really understand everything that's been shared in your presentation, as well as what's in GitHub as well, to ramp up to understand how to do it in a better way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who else?
I can go. I've had a little bit of experience with code reviews because I just spent the past 5 to 6 months in a boot camp. So we did a lot of peer code reviews throughout that. And then lots of times where mentors or our instructors would review our code, and it's intimidating, but I think it's really helpful because you learn so much from them. And everybody does things so differently. So very helpful.
I'll go next. I have not had any code review experience before, although I have been for a boot camp. We did not do any of that. And that's why I was really excited about the Collab Lab. To me, was like something I did not get before, like doing the code reviews or actually hearing, real software developers telling me what they think about my code is like something I was really looking forward to. At the same time, when I was reviewing the second team's code, felt really stressed, and I felt like I was supposed to bring the expertise that I maybe don't necessarily have. But at the same time, that compelled me to, go and learn about everything that was in the other team's code. For instance, I did not know about navlink. I thought there was only a link component. So I went ahead and learned about the navlinks. And I also learned about the end attribute that the navlink was. So for me, this code review was a learning experience and the code review experience. And it was great. And I'm looking forward to next week. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, it was also my first time doing code review, so I love the feature where you can comment on each other's PRs, like where specific, like which line specifically. I think it's really helpful, and yeah, I look forward to other PRs now.
I love that. I just want to comment on something really interesting that Danielle said. She mentioned that, when you join a new team, you're in that position where there are senior developers and the developers that have more experience. I think what's really cool about a junior developer joining a team for the first time is it almost humbles the team because a team, it's supposed to be high functional, right? Like you have someone on support here who is, if anything goes down, your seniors are not there, you're supposed to be able to help out too, right? Because you're part of that same team. I think what's really cool that as a junior developer, when you join a team, ask questions in those PR and don't be afraid to do that. Because I remember a specific time where one of our senior members had to implement an API and they just did it. They implemented the API, the feature worked great, but I had no idea where they found that API endpoint. Where they found out what methods were allowed with a get, post and whatnot. And I was like, I love that this is working, but where did you find this resource and how I can learn more about it, right? Because there is a lot of tribal knowledge that does exist before you're even there. And maybe you're reviewing the code, but don't be afraid to be like, why did we decide to do it this way? Or why is the code broken down this way? Why did you create this second component on top of this first parent component? Sometimes it doesn't even have to do with the code, and sometimes you're just curious about something that the code has to do with, and don't be afraid to just ask those questions because it's almost expected. Because as seniors, I think we get really carried away with just thinking everyone has the context that they need, and junior developers are really great to just kind of humble everyone and make sure that knowledge gets shared. I'll give it back to you here to keep us going.
Yeah, and it can be different from team to team, how you do code review. How the Collab Lab has standardized it is we've got the team 1 and team 2, and then team 1 puts up their PR. Each individual from team 2 will need to individually review. Once those 2 approvals happen, then the mentor will do the 3rd review. And then the team 1 folks will merge it. I'm not sure if that was clear last week, so apologies on the confusion with that. But it might be different where you work. I actually worked somewhere once where it was my first PR and my boss just approved it and merged it. So yeah, it really depends on the company. Also, if they're highly regulated, such as healthcare where I work, sometimes there's some extra rules that you have to deal with. But yeah, it really can look different everywhere. There's some places that don't even do PR reviews. They'll just merge it straight in and then do feedback later. I think it's called Git flow trunk based. I don't remember. Yeah, there's Git flow versus trunk based, and one of them you just merge straight in. It seems kind of wild to me, but maybe it works for some folks. So yeah, YOLO to prod. Some of us have been there before. Anyway, yeah. Any questions or anything regarding our review process? Has anything been kind of cumbersome for you? Because if that is the case, that would be a good time to chat about it, and we can kind of come up with a new team agreement. Cool. Okay. Oh yeah, Nika.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm only not sure. So once the opposite team approved our code, so do we go ahead and add a mentor to review, or is a mentor self-requesting a review? Just wanted to make that clear.
I can maybe tackle that question. Yeah, really great question. So we recently set up a code owner file. So every time you throw up a merge request or a pull request, mentors will automatically be added as reviewers just because they are the last day before the code can get across the finish line. So those will automatically get added. I think this is a really great opportunity to maybe leverage Slack. So when you have met all the required requirements for that code to get to a mentor, then ping a mentor. Because we almost expected that code to go through 4 different people, the self-review, the peer review, and get to a mentor at that time. The one thing I do want to touch base on and definitely just get feedback is the automation working? I know the automation can sometimes create a lot of noise because all 4 developers are getting pinged. And so if there's any adjustments that need to be made there, we'll definitely make them. If you find that there's an easier way to do it, please just be loud about it. Again, Collab Lab is about being loud, sharing your voice, and not hesitating. But yeah, the idea is that once you're ready for the other team to have a look, use the Slack React sheet or just ping the people individual, however you like to work. And then once it's ready for a mentor, ping a mentor, make sure that they're aware of it. And don't be afraid to follow up with them. Mentors are busy as well. It's something that we've all kind of committed to together. So don't hesitate to ping them over and over again until you get your work across the finish line. Again, the ownership really falls on that person that created the pull request, and it's about that impact piece, right? Like, what can you do to get your code across the finish line? And so do whatever you need to do. Be as loud as you need to be to get your work across the finish line.
Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes that's reflective of how it is in a job too. There have been some teams that I work with that are really great at, reviewing PRs. Other teams not so great. But they're also good at, being responsive to a Slack ping. So sometimes it's just figuring out what people's preferred style is. Some people do more like pull, some people do more push. So some folks might need that message. Cool. So let's get to the issues. You want to take that, Jennifer?
Cool. Yeah, let me open up the issues for this week. All right. And one question I had, Hassan, I wasn't sure if we were manually tagging in the groups for the issues or if that was automated. I didn't want to mess up any automation, so I didn't tag the people who are on the different issues this week.
Oh, is that inside GitHub itself?
Yeah, I think they were. So this is an example of last week's.
Yeah,
I think
you can
the
assign them.
assignees were already there. Okay.
You can 100%. Yeah, great question.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so if you're ever wondering where we get the lists of the pairs for the week, the whole project brief is kind of where everything lives. And then this week we have Warren and Gabrielle together, Veronica and Dilek together. And so we'll go to issue 4 first, and let me hopefully try to tag the right people here. I'm not going to assign myself. Let's scooch faces over. Oh no. Can you remind me
That last
which
one.
is it this last one?
Yeah.
All right. And then one. Let's just get these in first. All right, perfect. So this will be the both of your issue. So we're I think if you weren't here last week, we just kind of go over the issues. You'll hear my lovely voice narrating everything all over again. And any initial questions or anything, this is a great time to bring them up. Another thing I want to highlight is that if you have any other questions after the meeting, if you want to leave them here so we know like which issues they're looking to, it's a great place to start conversations. But all right, so this week's issue number 4 is, as a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so I can start tracking purchased items. Because that's the whole reason that we want a shopping list, is to be able to make new lists. Okay, so a shopping list is a set of items associated with the owner's unique ID and the name of the shopping list. Users need to be able to create new shopping lists. To do this, the home view should present them with a form that allows them to enter the name of their list. Additionally, we need to do a few things to create that list. So the first thing, we need to save the token to local storage. And then the second thing is save the list to our database using the create list function in the firebase.js. And then third is display that list. So show the user the list view. So this week, it's really nice because the acceptance criteria is split up into the UI and then the data related tasks. And so however you want to tackle it with your partner together, this kind of shows you probably for some people having the data first and then showing the UI would be helpful, but that's up to you and your pair. But so for the UI related tasks that will be accepted and this will be marked as done, are the home view displays a form that allows users to enter the name of a shopping list and then create a list with that name. The input that accepts the name of the item has a semantic label element associated with it. The user can submit this form with both the mouse and the enter key. Oh, exciting. And when the user submits the form, they see a message indicating that the list either was or was not created and saved to the database. The enter key part is clutch because my pet peeve on UI is not being able to push enter on forms. So excellent. And then so for the data related tasks, it's clicking the button uses the create list function in the Firebase utils file to create a new shopping list for the user. And then the shopping list path is stored in local storage using the set list path function. And then once the list has been created and saved, users directed to the list view. So as I mentioned last week, there's also more notes to kind of help you along with this issue. So I would highly suggest the pair to read the notes themselves for this. But does anyone have any questions so far for this specific issue? Can't see everybody's face, but I'm assuming everybody already.
This is just for context. Sorry, Warren, go
Yes.
ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna ask. So once the user creates like new list, like once they click enter, the next page or should be like to that list that they created. Like it goes to that list, the specific list that created.
I think so. It doesn't explicitly say that. Show the user the list view. Oh, no, it does say that right here. So I think it does redirect you to that new list view. That's a good question.
I don't know if we have the answer to this, so maybe I'm putting the mentors under scrutiny here. But the first task is like save a token to the local storage. Is that still from before the Firebase integration, or what is the purpose of the token? Just for context.
I think originally the token is so you should be able to share lists.
Okay.
So I think if you put a token in, and I haven't used the app in a very long time, so I believe last time that was what the token was for. Does anybody want to say anything about the token other than me?
If we don't have an answer, I'd love to dig into this and just share it with the team. I always like to make sure that we have like very clear criteria for pull requests just to make it easier on the team for sure.
Sounds good. I think for your question though, Warren, I think whatever you decide or your pair decides, just put it in the comments and then we'll go with that for the acceptance criteria. Because I definitely feel like either is very valid. You create a list and then you see it in the lists view, or you create a list and it goes straight to the list that you created's view. So I think either is a valid user experience. So. Are there any other questions for this issue? Otherwise, we'll go to the next one. All right. So we'll go to the next one then. And then do you all mind letting me know what your GitHub handles are? It's easy to find you for this one.
Mine starts with KW. And it should come up.
KW.
That one, the first
There
one.
we go. And then is it just your name for the handle?
Yeah, my full name.
Oops. First one. All right, cool, perfect. All right, so for issue number 5, as a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so I can start recording purchases. Woohoo, our list is gonna start taking form. All right, so users need to be able to add items to their shopping lists. To do this, the add item view should present them with a form that allows them to enter 2 things. the name of the item, and an estimate of when they think they'll need to buy the item again. So there's a whole README file. I know earlier on in other teams how the algorithm was supposed to work on when you should buy the item again. There are a lot of questions around that. So there's a whole README file on how this feature will work. So I would highly recommend reading through that. So for this feature, the acceptance criteria, so broken out again into the UI and the data related tasks. So we'll go over the UI first. So the managed list view displays a form that allows them to enter the name of the item and select how soon they anticipate needing to buy it again. There should be 3 choices for this. Soon, corresponding to 7 days, kind of soon, corresponding to 14 days, and not soon, corresponding to 30 days. The input that accepts the name of the item has a semantic label element associated with it. The user can submit this form with both the mouse and the enter key. When the user submits the form, they see a message indicating that the item either was or was not saved to the database. So for the data-related tasks, we have the console log and the add item function in the Firebase util file is replaced with a function that adds the new document to the Firebase store, or Firestore database, sorry. That function will be imported from the Firebase/Firestore module. The user's soon, not soon, kind of soon choice is used to calculate the next purchase date. And then, so as the other one, there are a few more notes here. I just want to preface this by saying sometimes the soon, kind of soon, and not soon can be a little bit confusing for some pairs. So if you have some immediate questions for this issue, please ask them now or later as they come up. Yes.
I have thank you. I have a question. I think that the kind of soon, I don't know yet, but I think it should be manageable. I have a question about whether we are allowed to use like custom hooks. I like to use like custom hooks for forums and like messages for the user. Is that okay or not?
Custom hooks, like you create your own custom hook?
Yeah.
I think that however you would like to approach this issue is fine. And then if you have more concrete examples of how you would like to approach the problem with the custom hook, we could definitely comment more concretely there.
Oh, you know, I would like to, you know, just take the state for the message out in a separate module, and then I would import it, and it would just be like a message. I do not know how to explain it indeed.
No problem, no problem. And then we can always discuss this a little bit more. I'm also doing office hours this week, so I want to make sure we keep time because I think we have about 15 more minutes in our meeting. But yeah, any idea is open to be explored. So however you and your pair want to approach this is valid. And mentors might just like direct you with what we feel like might be easier from our previous experience. All right, cool. But for the most part, does the acceptance criteria, at least for this issue, feel clear? I know we had a little bit of confusion about the local storage token from the last one, so I want to just make sure that this one's clear.
I did want to give a heads up. I did update or add a comment to issue 4. It was
Oh,
supposed to be
cool.
changed from token. I felt like token was from the old implementation.
Yes, yes.
It's supposed to be now that
Probably
you
from
create
way
the
back when.
list. Yeah, it's just supposed to save the list path in the local storage. So you're still saving something, just not a token. So if you get confused by that token word, don't worry about it. There's a comment on the merge request or the issue.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I was on TCL 5, everybody. So the way that I might have implemented this is probably much different than how we're going to be doing it in TCL 75. So always bring these types of things up. Thank you. So. All right. But I think that's it for issues this week. I'll stop sharing my screen. And then that actually leaves us a little bit of time, I think.
Yeah, I think one thing that I did notice is issue 2 and issue 3 are still marked as open. in our repo.
Let me share my screen and I'll show you all really quick where there's a couple different ways that you can close it. Let me show you. Let me share my screen again. So if we go here, if we go into issues, I think I have issue number 2. So you can either close the issue here with a comment. The other way that you can do it is we have these project boards here. And we can go to the Smart Shopping List project board. And you can see that we have a Kanban board here, which is basically just a fancy way of saying, you can imagine these as Post-it notes and you can move them along the different areas where it's in progress, it's in peer review, or it's in mentor review. This is another really great way to actually communicate to the team and have a quick snapshot about how far along we are in the process. We can also decide as a team if we want to use this Kanban board or not. I always like to say that process should help and not hinder a team. And so everybody should be on board to use this. But this is another way that you can actually finish and move everything to do. Some people did. So move everything to done, and then it'll automatically mark the issue as complete. And so that we know when you go back to the issues tab. Come on, GitHub. Nope, guess not. We go back to the issues tab. You can see that now we only have number 4 and number 5. I don't know why number 3 didn't automatically get marked as closed, but also another cool thing that you can do is if in your pull request, you can also do something called closes number and then click the issue. So I'll just add a new pull request. Oh, I don't have any changes made. I'm going to steal your pull request for 1 second. And if I edit this description, if I write, I think it's closes number, and then you'll see a bunch of issues here. If you select which issue it is, once this PR is merged in, it'll actually automatically close the issue for you as well. So that's another way if you don't want to have to do it yourself. So there's a couple different ways on how we want to do it. Let me cancel so I don't mess up your description. So hopefully that clears up a few things on how you can close out the issue.
Great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Nika, did you write issue 2 closed in the PR? Yeah, I felt like I saw that. I wonder if we have to do closes issue 2 maybe.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
not have that shortcut. I just manually closed both issues.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a bit picky. I think
That's
you have to
confusing.
say closes and then number. Yeah.
Because I thought what Nika was thinking. But yeah, if it didn't work, it didn't work. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think that's all I had. We have announcements about, I guess, Jennifer, you're the code reviewer and
Yes.
the office hours. Did you want to chat about that before we head out?
Yeah, sure. I think one thing is, so I'll be the mentor reviewer for this week and also doing office hours. I just wanted to get a gauge and sense from everyone what day of the week works better. I think because we're trying to get we're trying to get PRs out a little bit sooner in the week, so there's more time for review and more time for that back and forth. I was thinking either having an office hour on Tuesday or Wednesday might be the most helpful, but I'm not you all, so you let me know if that seems reasonable. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only available late evenings during the week or super early mornings during the week.
Yeah, me too. So I have work as well. So I will probably put up another one of those, what do you call it? Doodles, or the other one that doesn't have any ads. I'll put one of those up so we have a little bit of, we can see which time slot the most people can come to. And then we'll decide
those
from
are
there.
excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then let's see. I think because we have a few minutes left, I just want to make sure that everyone has the space to ask any questions they have so far for how this whole process is, any coding questions, and then if no one has any questions about specifically Collab Lab stuff, if you have any questions for outside of Collab Lab stuff. Yes.
I'll ask another question since we have time. So I noticed that we don't leave like heavy comments in the code. So I thought whether we are going to start doing that or if it's okay to like leave no comments in the code.
That's a very good question. I think different workplaces will view this very differently. For my workplace specifically, and this is something that you all can decide for your own code base. But for our workplace specifically, we like to leave comments for why. So if there is ambiguous context about maybe something was a little bit hacky and we know we're going to clean it up later, we leave a lot of why context comments. I think early on, sometimes you'll do a lot of what comments about what this code actually does. But I think over time, you get used to the code speaks for itself. And a lot of the things that you have to communicate is actually the decision making or the other context behind why you did it this way. So I would encourage that if you do want to leave comments in the code, which I'm not against, focusing on why or context-driven comments.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I add one more thing to that really quickly?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, if you're ever unsure of like, hey, should this comment be added to the code? Do it as your own self-review. So when you put up that pull request, just add it there. And then if your team thinks it's like valid context to have in the code for other people, they'll probably just tell you to put it in the code. And so it's a great way to just have that comment out somewhere, whether it's in the code or not. It's always easier to add stuff to the code than do you have to go in to remove things from the code. Maybe it's the other way around. But again, the context will always help. So if you ever were like, hey, I don't want to add this to the code because I don't know if that's the right thing to do, just add in your self-review. And then if it's good, if it's great context, we'll probably just ask you to add it to the code.
That's actually perfect. That's the great thing about PRs. Usually my PRs look like I'm talking to myself, because a lot of the time I'll be asking reviewers, I'll be like, hey, I was kind of 50-50 on doing it this way because of this or this way because of this. Do you want to do that like internal tiebreaker for me and like see what the outside thoughts are? So definitely err on the side of, if you think it should go in, throw it up, and then we'll decide as a group if it's a good idea or not. Cool. Well, I'm not going to force everyone to ask questions if they don't have any. So any of the mentors have any other like tidbits they want to share before we head out? Or
I could bring up a somewhat disrespectful but humorous meme. I'll see if I can find it. There's this like picture of like a stop sign, and then in front of it says, "This is a stop sign." Just thinking about like the, how many
Junior
should I
developers.
leave? Yeah, you've seen it. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of rude because it's like, oh, junior devs, but like I've seen people at all levels do this. So I'll see if I can find it and link it in our chat because I think it's funny, but I don't think we should be like making fun of people because they're a junior dev. So I disagree with that part of it. Or if you find it, post it. It's pretty good.
I was gonna say, I don't think it has anything to do with junior devs. I get comments about
Yeah.
leaving too many comments all the time from, people that are senior. They're like, Asan, like, dude, just chill out. Like, remove these comments. We know what your code is doing. I'm like, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
which I think is funny because usually once you like compile everything, usually comments are stripped out. So no real biggie. But
There it
that's
is.
just my hot take, my opinion.
Yeah, I think this applies to everyone. It says junior devs, but also too, like when I was early career, I never clung to the title junior developer. I just said I was a developer, and it worked much better for me. I like
Yeah,
that.
yes, I think that's one thing I wanted to comment about. A lot of when we talk about code review, we were talking about from the context of like a more junior person and a more senior person. But always remember when you come to a code review, like you have your own expertise as well. And so don't feel like when you're an early career dev, that's like a chip on your shoulder that you should always like not suggest things and things like that. Like for example, at my own work, I was probably one of the more junior people there, but one of the most senior people working with React. So at first I was hesitant to comment on people's front-end code, but that devolved very quickly. So I started getting a bit more confidence to be like, hey, you probably shouldn't do it that way. Or hey, actually, here's some docs for you to learn a little bit better on how you should like interact with React or what's like the typical like rules around React and stuff like that. So just remember, like, even if you are a junior or your early career, your opinion is just as valid and it matters just as much. So always give it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Guess we're all set. Yeah, if you have any
Cool.
questions or if you run into a merge conflict or something and need help, definitely let us know, because I think usually week 2 or 3 is where that happens. So we're happy to help if we're around. But we also have that implicit rule of respond within 6 hours, so you will get an answer. 6 waking hours. Anyway, I think that's all I got. So see you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Have a good week.